Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another TheeSportsScoop video. Day 2 of the NFL draft is over. Rounds 2 and 3 have concluded, and more players are off the board. So today we are here with our draft Day 2 steals. Keen McDermott. I'm joined by Suraj Kadali. We have about 10 players who we liked, picks we liked, value picks, and then steals, kind of just the best picks, in our opinion, from Day 2 of the NFL draft. Me and Suraj were watching the entire thing. So it was a lot of fun, but let's quickly look at our players and break down each of them for you guys. So, Suraj, how are you feeling? How was day 2 for you quickly before we get into it?
Very exciting. Excited to kind of just go into the best picks. I think it was kind of a very interesting round for we saw a lot of guys fall that we didn't expect to, and a lot of teams got great value in the second and third round.
All right, so the first guy we're going to talk about, I think he's the best guy going in to this, obviously round 1, or excuse me, round 2, and he didn't have to get taken until late. And that was Andrew Booth, cornerback out of Clemson, who went to Minnesota, a very big team need. And sir, we just know how good Andrew Booth is. I think a pick that in terms of value really doesn't get much better. And that McCreary was taken before him. McCreary was taken before him.
Kyler
Kyler Gordon
I
was
think.
taken before him. There were a lot of guys taken before him. And I think for the Vikings, this guy, arguably the best ball skills in the class, a guy who last night when I recorded the best players available on day 2, he was one of them. I think it was a fantastic pick, and in terms of value, doesn't get much better.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think almost everyone predicted that this guy would find himself somewhere within the first round, but because of obviously an injury during the draft process, we know how much that can hamper a player's stock, even if it clearly isn't going to have an effect on their career. And I don't think really this should have any lingering effects. The Vikings, again, a team that I feel like really need a cornerback. Their best corner last season was an aging Patrick Peterson. I think he also has left as well. We don't really see, and I don't really see
Peterson
anyone at
resigned.
Peterson did resign, my bad. But other than that, still Cameron Dantzler, I think
Yeah, not
that's
much.
all. There's not much there. And I think Booth, like I said, if not for this injury, I think he definitely would have a first round pick. I think he could have gone top half, arguably. Again, like you said, ball skills, some of the best in this class. So I think this is an easy pick for one of the day 2 steals.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Then at
Mm,
our second guy, a guy who we loved in the first round, a guy who
mm,
fell to the Falcons in the second. That's Arnold Ebiquite out of Penn State. Again, a guy who I think possesses a lot of size and a lot of hand skills in terms of being able to kind of have those karate moves. At the line of scrimmage, a guy who actually possessed a lot of speed. And I think we saw him be very, very good at is kind of going up against the bigger tackles and being able to win, as he's a bigger edge rusher. Obviously played at Temple, then transferred to Penn State. Again, for the Falcons, I think, who haven't had a dominant, pass rush in a long time. And again, Arnold Ebiquite, a guy who can kind of fit, gap the run. So I think it was just a really good pick. It was a very good value pick for an edge rusher, a big need for them. They obviously, who's not on this list, went and got Desmond Ridder later. So I think the Falcons had a very, very good day 2. And I think Arnold Ebiquite was definitely a very good way to start it off.
Oh yeah, I love this pick. Arnold Ebiquite, one of my favorite edge rushers in this class. I think, like I said, his pressure rate from out of Penn State was one of the best out of all the edge rushers in this draft class. And like I said, the Falcons, they had the worst pass rush in the league this year. I believe they had less sacks than both TJ Watt and Robert Quinn last season, which basically tells you all you needed to know. So they were in desperate need of an edge rusher. I think Ebiquite was one of the best available. I think he's the best fit in a 4-3, but I think he can kind of deal with that 3-4 that the Falcons are running. So I think this is a great pick for Atlanta, especially considering that, in my opinion, I thought he was first round value.
Yeah. Then next we have Malik Willis, the quarterback who was finally taken,
Mm,
the third quarterback off the board at 86 to the Titans. Again, this was a pick that, not just happened, but like this is a pretty recent pick, kind of at the later back half of the third. And again, I just love the pick for the Titans. I think what was actually so it was kind of a quarterback we didn't think would go to the Titans. It was definitely speculation. And it ended up happening. I think it's kind of the perfect fit. You have Treylon Burks now. Obviously, losing AJ Brown's a bit of an issue, but it's that perfect fit because Tannehill probably has a year, maybe two left, and then Malik Willis will fit in there. And obviously, we know the upside this guy has as a quarterback, top 5 potential if he's able to unlock and polish his game. And I mean, Surge, the highest potential quarterback in this class and one of the highest potential guys we've seen in a long time. And again, I think it makes a ton of sense. And what we were talking about and kind of the story of the day for all these quarterbacks was if teams don't take them in the first round, they don't see them as a starter. And then they're kind of like, well, if we don't think they're a starter, we're going to wait till the 4th if a guy's available because there's no point in wasting a second round pick on them. That's what happened to most of the guys. But I think the Titans got an absolute gem in a potential gem in Malik Willis. And I think, coaching wise, they have a very good coach and Vrabel, if there's a guy to coach him, I think Vrabel could be that guy. So big fan of Malik Willis there. I think absolute value pick.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Even when we were doing the live stream yesterday, I think we're thinking as high 6, we were predicting, okay, this is where Malik Willis is going to go. And now here we are in the 80s. I don't think anyone would have predicted that he would have fallen all the way down here. But like I said, I think it makes a lot of sense because really, I think kind of the Titans had already addressed all their needs, and a third round pick, it's going to be very difficult to find someone who you think is really going to be a starter. And I think Malik Willis is kind of that guy where it's very likely that he just doesn't pan out and just doesn't become a starter like ever, a good starter ever, because like he just doesn't. There's so much to coach with him. He's such a project, but I think it's worth it to take a chance at the third round because if he pans out, he has top 5 quarterback in this league potential. So I think in terms of just like kind of the potential that he has and just like the third round value, I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Mm.
Then the final guy, a guy, sir, me and you, we were watching it
Mm.
together. We're like, okay, maybe this is Nakobe
Mm.
Dean. Okay, Nakobe Dean here. Team's trading up. Oh, they're
I
going to go
know.
get Nakobe Dean. And the Eagles, a team who were mocked to get him in the first round, ended up getting him finally in the third round. And again, I mean, we know how good Nakobe Dean is it doesn't get much better in this draft from a sideline to sideline, consistent tackling linebacker. I love Nakobe Dean out of Georgia. I think he brings a ton of energy to an Eagles defense that very much needs it. I'm a massive fan of the pink. I think this is arguably one of the biggest steals of the draft. Again, the whole problem why he fell, and we saw this with a linebacker last year in JOK with his underlying heart problem. We literally saw the exact same situation. He fell to the early third.
Mm.
But Nakobe Dean, I guess,
No, I
fell
think
late
he was.
third.
I think JOK was late second. This was
No,
like,
JOK was early third. I remember. I
oh,
remember we had this argument, Surge, or not argument. We talked about. I think Charlie thought the same, but he was late.
mm.
Maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty certain he was early third. But again, the Eagles get a guy who they could have been taking in the first round. So I think, and that was the kind of thing with the Titans as well. Like a lot of these guys, Andrew Booth, all players they could have taken in the first round and no one would have questioned it. And to go and get them in the third round, I think Nakobe Dean is just as good as it gets a linebacker in this class.
Yeah, I agree. I think really it was shocking at first that like Kobe Dean was falling out of the first round, then like kind of into the mid second, thinking, oh, maybe just teams don't like his size. But then once he's getting into the late seconds, into there, like they're realizing it's got to be something more than that. And like you said, albeit there it is, the medical issues where again torn pectoral muscle, I believe, or torn labrum, and the problem is that he didn't really want to have surgery. I think he just didn't want that longer recovery time. And obviously the fear that maybe it could like kind of take away some of his strength or some of his whatever. But I think kind of that kind of turned off a lot of teams. But again, if it's similar to Willis, I think he's one of those guys that even if he's one of, not only is like got the athleticism, but he's one of the smartest players on the defense out of all these defensive players in this draft class. So I think the Eagles getting him in third round is amazing value. I know Howie Roseman doesn't really have a history of kind of drafting off-ball linebackers, but Nakobe Dean in the third round, I don't think you can go wrong there. And I think the Eagles overall have had one of the best drafts out of all the teams in the class.
And then the next guy we're talking about, a guy who I don't know
Mm.
much to say, and that's Jaquan Brisker, safety out of
Yeah.
Penn State. I wouldn't say one of the bigger steals here, but I think in terms of value, offered a ton. And what I liked the most about it was they took him after they drafted Kyler Gordon out of Washington, who arguably should have been up here also. Again, I just think they
Mm.
added so much to the secondary and getting Jaquan Brisker in this pick. I would say it was around ish where he was mocked, maybe a little bit later. But I think this is more of a very, very good pick. This is just a pick that I liked a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I think with Jaquan Brisker, it's just one of those guys where I think he easily could have been a late first rounder, early second, and he falls to 48, which I think was way past what I thought his value was. And the Bears, again, they've got a so-so defense. I know they've like kind of traded away a couple of big pieces to their defense, like Khalil Mack, but they've still got a decent defense. But they kind of just rebuilt that secondary in just this one draft, getting guys like Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon who could be key contributors to this defense. And Brisker in particular, I think I just really like his value in like this like mid-second where I think he could easily have been a late first or an early second. So I think just overall, when you just look at who is available at 48 and kind of what the Bears had to fill at that spot, I think Brisker was a great pick there.
Yeah. Then we had what I think to be the steal of the draft, and that's George Pickens
Yeah.
out of Georgia, who went to the Steelers. Again, I think George Pickens is an absolute, could be and end up being a generational guy if he pans out. Again, do I think the fit with the Steelers is necessarily best case scenario? No, because they already have that big bodied guy in Chase Claypool, but I think it could work out. We kind of haven't. Maybe we start to see this kind of new system of receivers emerge in the NFL where you take two big receivers and then obviously you have Deontay Johnson to complement him. My only issue with it is obviously you have Claypool and Deontay Johnson ahead of him. Obviously Juju is gone, but I think George Pickens is just a explosive downfield receiver, really good in the air. You're kind of the classic, in the realm of the big receivers, him, Drake London, Khalil Shakir, Tyquan Thornton, the big 6'3", 6'2" receivers. But again, for him to fall here, I think this guy could have been a pick for the Packers, for the Patriots, for the Chiefs in the first round, and for him to fall to the Steelers, I think it was an absolute gem. But again, the fit, I'm not a massive fan of, but I think in terms of just where he fell, the value he gives to a team in the second round is immense.
Yeah, but I think it's not only his like just his pure size, it's the way that he combines his size with athleticism and his
Mhm.
speed is amazing. I think he was just purely as a prospect, he was one of the best receivers in this class,
Yeah.
arguably top 5. But the main issue was the character concerns. We heard it as of like probably for the last week about kind of how interested was he, him getting in fights during games, like how good was he during interviews. And I don't know if it's true. I think it might have been Rappaport who reported that I think he was in like some sort of like minor car crash where he wasn't wearing a seatbelt,
Mhm.
which obviously just like I mean, not a football thing, but it's just like kind of shows a bit of immaturity on his part. But I think the Steelers is a really good landing spot you can go to. It's like a very professional culture. They
Yeah.
managed to even kind of contain Antonio Brown before he kind of got a bit out of control.
Yeah.
So I think I think Steelers is a very good landing spot for him. And I think it might move Claypool to a position where maybe he's like a big slot and you have Deontay and George Pickens on the outside. But if Pickens can pan out as like the football player that he really has potential to be, I think he could be one of the better receivers in this league, especially for a team like the Steelers.
Yeah. And then we go to one of my favorite picks of the
Yeah.
draft. And I wouldn't say this was definitely not a value pick. I would say James Cook was kind of around here, but I think in terms of steals, James Cook out of Georgia going to the Bills. I just love the fit so much because he goes to an automatic contender. And again, I can just see him tearing defenses apart. I think the Bills, and we've been advocating for this since last year, since Etienne Najee Harris were there. Take a running back in the first round, take a running back in the first round. James Cook was the third guy, I believe, third running back taken. He was the last one taken, right, sir? I don't think there was another. Oh, there
No, there
was.
was
I'm
like
sorry, there was a lot more. Excuse me, I'm completely wrong
I
about
think
that.
Brian Robinson was taking one of the I forgot his
Yeah,
name.
LSU running back was
Cardinals took
taken.
someone.
The 49ers took one of the LSU running backs. But again, James Cook, you look at him and the immediate comparison is his brother Dalvin Cook, in terms of his shiftiness and downhill running. I can see him. Obviously, we're not gonna he could pan out like Dalvin Cook. But he has the traits that Dalvin Cook did. I think that's what's so intriguing for me as a Bills fan is they finally get that true RB1, or at least what they hope to be. And even
Mm,
then, he's not the perfect size, perfect, like Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker, like the perfect running back size. I would say James Cook is a little bit smaller, but in terms
yeah.
of steals, I just absolutely love the fit in Buffalo for James Cook.
Oh yeah, I love the value. I don't think James Cook was the best running back in this class. I personally would prefer Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker. But in terms of 63, I think personally for me, I think that's great value. And I think he fits perfectly what the Bills are trying to do. He's going to provide a totally new element in this passing game. I think He'll be very good on inside zones from a shotgun, and obviously, I think outside. And like you said, Kian, I think he could be very similar to Dal. I mean, he's similar to Dalvin in the sense that in terms of running downhill, he could be very, very successful. And I think he should step in there, and there's not too much pressure because you've already got a couple of established running backs on the team. You got Zach Moss, you got Devin Singletary, who played very well down the stretch. But I think James Cook, maybe not week one, but I think at some point during the season, he will take over that running back one role, which is exactly what the Bills need to kind of get over the top. They need that consistent running back that they can trust in the playoffs. And I think that's what James Cook can really provide. So he's going to go into Buffalo, and I think he could be one of the guys on this list who makes the most immediate impact because of how valuable he can be to a team like Buffalo, who are really looking to make a push for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and then we had the Dolphins, who their first pick of the draft, and I think they absolutely slam dunked it here with Channing Tindall out of Georgia, and third linebacker taken out of Georgia. But again, I think what we look at with this Georgia defense and what they did so much is they didn't really let Trayvon Walker, their edge rushers, blitz as much. It was or not blitz, but pass rush as much because obviously that's the goal. But you look at Quay Walker, you look at Channing Tindall, you look at Nakobe Dean, and Channing Tindall and Quay Walker were the two main passer, blitzers, and they got a lot of sacks. And I think that can be so useful for a Dolphins team that definitely has been lacking at the pass rush spot. I just love the pick. Again, I think it shows how deep this Georgia defense was, why it was one of the best defenses we'll ever see in college football. But I think for the Dolphins at 102, this was a slam dunk pick. I don't think they overthought it. I just really like the pick. There's not really much to say here. Maybe not a steal in my or yeah, it was a steal. I
think
think
it's a steal.
Yeah, I think a steal. But in terms of the Dolphins, this is their first pick of the draft. I think they got a starting caliber player, and it's very hard to find that in the 100. So I think it's an absolute slam dunk selection.
Yeah, I think at least at minimum, he's a rotational guy on that defense.
Yeah.
Like you said, his blitzing capabilities will be very good for a Dolphins team that I assume is still going to kind of go under the assumption that they're still going to be blitzing a decent bit, considering a lot of their team is built on that predicate. But I think Channing Tindall, a guy that I would have really liked for the Jets, who picked one spot earlier. But I think it's, again, Dolphins, I think that's a slam dunk pick. I don't think he would necessarily start immediately, but just the fact that he'll get some minutes, on Miami on their defense, especially on third downs. I could definitely see him getting a decent bit of playing time. Maybe eventually he'll grow into that spot, or maybe he'll be that starting interior linebacker. So I think Channing Tindall, again, another piece to that dominant Georgia defense, I think is a great pick for Miami.
Yeah, and then it's the exact same thing with Christian Harris, the next linebacker out of Alabama. Again, a guy who was on one of my steal list or on my day two best available. And again, a guy who went late to the Texans. And I think for a Texans team, this defense looks great. They got Jalen Petra, and now they got Christian Harris in the second round. Obviously, in the first round, they went out and got Derek Stingley. So they've built they gotten three key pieces at linebacker, in that back half of the field. And Christian Harris, I think, offers a lot as an all-around linebacker, very big, very bulky linebacker, kind of that Devin Lloyd. They're the two, big physical linebackers in this class. And I'm a massive fan of the pick for the Texans. And again, in terms of steals, this is exactly what that is.
Oh yeah, I think this is another pick where just kind of it makes sense because the Texans are probably the team that has the most needs out of any team in the NFL. So I think it's like kind of you see a guy like Christian Harris who clearly is fallen past what his value should be. I think 70, I think it was around 75.
Yeah.
I want to say it was that. I don't know if it's that exactly, but no matter what, 70 is way too far for Christian Harris. So just for him to scoop him up there is amazing value. And I think Houston really had a sneakily pretty good draft. They got Stingley, they got Kenyon Green, who I know was a bit of reach, but I think it was still a very good pick. And they got Christian Harris at 75, which is great value. And I just think it was an overall pretty good draft for Houston.
Yeah. And then the last one, surprise, another steal, and that is Travis Jones, defensive tackle out of UConn. And again, it was just the kind of thing where it fell into the lap of the Ravens, and it's the perfect pick. Calais Campbell is getting old. Travis Jones is the perfect replacement for him. One of the pristine, kind of do it all defensive tackle. Obviously, just physically very, very massive, and I think a guy who will probably. I would think he would be more to rush the quarterback but I think they'll obviously use him at both. And again, for the Ravens, I think it was
Mhm.
just a big position of need, and he fell right into their lap.
Yeah, I think it was funny for the Ravens. I think they were the team that every pick I think was amazing value for their
Yeah.
selections. Like
Right. Yeah.
Kyle Hamilton at 14, Tyler Linderbaum at 25, David Ajabo at I don't know, it was
Right.
like 40s or 50s, I
Yeah.
believe. And then Travis Jones at 75, a guy that I could have seen going in the late 30s or maybe even like the early second round. So
Yeah.
just to get him at 75, he's going to be in a very good run stopping defensive lineman. I think we were thinking maybe the Ravens could have taken Jordan Davis in the first round. We were thinking maybe that could have happened, but getting Travis Jones, kind of like a lesser version of him, but I still think that's a great pick for Baltimore. And he should kind of be, again, be another guy that kind of could maybe flirt with being an immediate starter, but I think he'll start off as that rotational guy and will be very successful.
Yeah, but that is it. Let us know what you guys thought of day two. What was kind of your reactions? What were your some of favorite picks? What were your some of day two steals? Make sure you guys do subscribe as well. We're pushing out a ton of content for you. Thank you so much for watching. Keen McDermott, Suraj Kadali. Make sure you guys go check out some of our other videos. Go check out our TikTok and our Instagram because we will be posting some of our first round reactions over there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.